Welcome, everybody, to the Voice of the Coalition. I'm Bill DeCourcy, president of the Insurance Marketing Coalition, and today I regret to announce we are down a man. My co-host, Chris Michelson, is under the weather today, and we wish him a speedy recovery. But as he would be the first to say, the show must go on, especially because the topic we're going to talk about today is way too important to push. Today, we're talking about the death of an AOR. So AOR displacement, agent of record displacement, it's one of those issues that sounds like an edge case or something you likely won't encounter until you actually look at the numbers. In 2025 alone, our guest, who I'll introduce in a moment, documented 830 cases, and about 54% of them traced back to unauthorized agent switches. So that's not a glitch in the system. That's a pattern, and it's one we have to get to the bottom to. And when an AOR gets displaced, it's not just a paperwork issue. We're talking about prior authorizations falling through, deductibles resetting, care continuity disrupted, and real members, real beneficiaries losing access to the providers and coverage that they counted on. And speaking of our guest, I've got an outstanding one with me today. Somebody who's seen this play out firsthand. Bobby Bakhshandeh, he is the CEO of Advantage Plus Insurance Agency, and he's going to bring the ground level reality to what we're discussing. So let's get right into it. You can ask your questions along the way in the chat, and we'll be sure to answer as many as time permits. Thank you very much for joining us, Bobby.
Thank you very much for having me, Bill. It is an honor, of course, to be on your webinar, and I appreciate everyone for tuning in today to get more of this topic, of course, solved and out in the industry as much as we can do, of course.
Absolutely. And one of the things you've done to help prepare us for that discussion is you and your agency have put together a video. It's a short video, 4.5 minutes. Thought we might kick it off with that video to get some background on how you're addressing things, both, explaining the issue and with CMS. If you're good, I'll go ahead and I'll put that video on screen and we can start our discussion afterwards.
Let's go for it.
Yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is Stephanie Martinez from Advantage Plus Insurance Agency. Recently, we submitted a formal letter to CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, regarding an issue we've been seeing that affects licensed insurance agents, Medicare beneficiaries, their doctors, and the stability of their care. I wanted to take a moment to explain in simple terms what the letter is about, why we submitted it, and what we're hoping to improve. Over the past year, we started noticing a pattern involving Medicare Advantage enrollments. Some patients were being disenrolled from their health plan and then reinstated back into the same plan shortly afterward. In many cases, this was happening within 30 to 60 days. At first glance, it may seem like a small administrative change, but in reality, it can create several problems for patients and providers. When a Medicare plan is terminated and then restarted, even if it's the same plan, it can trigger several disruptions. For example, patients may temporarily lose access to their doctors. Prior authorizations can be canceled, deductibles and benefits can reset, pharmacies and medications may be interrupted, provider records can become inconsistent. So even though the patient may end up back in the same plan, the disruption in the middle can affect their continuity of care. This also creates instability for medical groups and physicians. When a patient is disenrolled and then reinstated, the system removes the agent of record, even though the patient returned to the same plan. This creates administrative confusion and can disrupt the normal care coordination process between the patient, the provider, and the plan. In most cases, these short-term changes appear to bypass existing rules that protect continuity of care and the protection of agent of record within the health plan. To better understand what was happening, our team conducted an internal review. We analyzed 860 Medicare beneficiary cases between January 1, 2025 and December 31, 2025. In those cases, we identified recurring patterns where patients were temporarily disenrolled and then reinstated into the same plan. But once they were brought into the same plan, then they now had a new agent listed as their agent of record, or the health plan would show it as a house account because Medicare had reinstated them into their previous plan, but starting the following month. Based on those findings, we decided to bring this issue to the attention of CMS. In the letter, we respectfully asked CMS to consider implementing standardized safeguards to protect beneficiaries. One of the main ideas we proposed is a 60 to 90-day continuity safeguard. This means that if a patient is disenrolled and then reinstated into the same plan within a short period of time, certain protections should remain in place. For example, maintaining continuity of care. Maintain the same agent of record if members come back within 60-90 days, preserving existing records, preventing unnecessary administrative disruptions. The goal is simply to ensure stability for both patients, providers, and protect the agents. It's important to emphasize something very clearly. This request was not about protecting commissions or financial interests. Our concern was about protecting patients, maintaining continuity of care, and ensuring administrative consistency across Medicare Advantage plans. Ultimately, when enrollment changes create instability, it's the patient and their doctor who feel the impact. Our goal with this letter is to encourage clearer safeguards that protect Medicare beneficiaries and support the stability of the healthcare system they rely on. We also welcome further dialogue with CMS and other stakeholders to help improve the process. At the end of the day, our focus is simple: protect patients, support providers, and ensure that Medicare enrollment decisions strengthen, not disrupt, the patient's relationship with their doctor. Thank you for taking a moment to understand this issue with us.
There's a lot there, Bobby.
Yes.
And I'd like to just start at the beginning. How did you discover this? What were the indicators that made you do this investigation and find out that this practice was taking place and that it was, hurting our business, hurting our beneficiaries, and very likely hurting all of our reputations?
Correct. Yeah, so let's go back to, step one. So, as an agency, we all see, disenrollments, we all see the reports, we all see the different things, of course, happening with our agents. But when you suddenly see a pattern of agents that barely have disenrollments or termination now have 7 to 10 every single month, and they don't really know why they have the disenrollments, you start looking into it. As a little agency that we are, we service a little bit 900 plus agents nationally. So we're very small. We can have the oversight we want to when it comes to commission reports, everything. So basically, based on the facts that our agents that barely have disenrollments now have higher disenrollments, we started to look into, what is the cause of this? Is it our agents, or is it the plans that they're enrolling into, or is it just maybe errors within the carriers that are showing termination? And we have that on a normal day. You have carriers that show termination but still active on the other end. So that's how we actually started, just from step one, of course.
I gotcha. And so, was this a sudden phenomenon? Did it build up gradually over time? Or what do you think that there's some action that's taken place by bad actors that's started this as a new and growing problem in the industry?
Yes, I do. So a few years ago, majority of the carriers, they would accept what would call the agent of record changes. Majority of
Mhm.
them. Some of them were pretty simple. It would just be a form submitted, nothing to do with the member, absolute zero to do with the member. An agent could just submit a form, put a member ID on it. And again, I seen out in the industry, I seen other agencies have, vendor booths and an event. Some patient walks up, they say, "Hey, you know what, so and so, I'm actually with this health plan. This is my card. What do you know about them?" Within a second, that agent takes a picture of that card the day after they're submitting that, agent of record form to the carrier, because now they have the member ID. No one, absolutely no one is going to look into what happened, how it happened. The member is just not going to know that they changed the agent of record. This was a few years ago.
Mhm.
Suddenly, the carriers started breaking down on it. They say, you know what, we don't do agent of record changes anymore. If the member is already within our plan, you can change their plan, but original agent stays, as an AOR within the carrier. So we said, as an agency, we said, great, that's actually giving us more, um, more defense on being the agent of record. They're actually protecting us agents now. So when that happened, the bad actors had to find a way around this. Now you can submit the forms. Now you cannot become agent of record without, just the easy path, of course, of submitting a form, or, logging into someone's portal and changing it. So
Mhm.
what is that path? This is the path, of course, that
This
they
is
take.
the path of doing this. So when people are doing this, when those bad actors are doing this, they're following the process, but they're just it's like they're getting assigned scope of appointment, things like that. They're going through the process. They're just doing something that is unethical. And is that the case that they're not taking any shortcuts? They're just doing this in an unethical way?
Correct, exactly. So, we all have the call centers that, are out there that, are misleading, the patients, the beneficiaries into plans that are just completely, not true, with the high grocery benefits and someone coming cleaning your house and so on.
Mhm.
So we have the misleading path, of course, of being enrolled into a plan that doesn't fit you. That's one. And then you also have, the misleading agents, that just sits down with a person and say, you know what, you're getting so and so right now, but with this plan, you're getting so much that is actually not true. So they get enrolled into that plan based on a lie. They see it's a lie. 10 days after, they'll call that agent that lied to them and say, hey, you know what, Bill, you said I'm going to get this and this. I want to go back to my plan. And the agent is like, oh, you know what? I'm so sorry, that was actually true. Now I'm going to put you back with that plan that you were with before. What does the agent do? They submit a new plan back to the old plan with their information on it. Everything goes back to normal.
Yeah, I think that all of us took a little bit of solace in the fact that there was this stopgap between the misleading advertisement and the actual beneficiary, and that was the agent. And if you've heard me talk about this topic before, you know that I take that word agent very seriously and very literally. At that time, when you're acting as an agent, those of us who are agents, you understand that your responsibility is to act on that person's behalf. And this is a gross violation of that.
Correct.
So I wanted one thing before we get into some prepared materials that we have. We're going to talk about, what was just spoken about in that video, which is your response to CMS. I'd like to know, and this may be a controversial question, but we don't shy away from controversial topics here. The carriers, are they aware of this? Are they taking action on this? Are they concerned? What has been your intelligence that you've gathered about how the carriers feel about this?
Again, we've been very, very, outspoken and verbal about this. The letter has been on social media, going to different places. We mass emailed every single carrier email that we have. So I don't think that, there's any carrier partners that have not heard about it, that have not seen it. We have emailed them directly. We talked with majority of them. So there is no one that's been left out of this conversation.
Yeah.
Um, the couple that we actually had, the several carriers that we actually had a conversation with, they know, they know that, short-term disenrollments and enrollments are a thing. There is no shying away from it. There is no denying it all. But their answer to all this is that, what do we do? How do
Mhm.
we fix this? And it's I was talking with someone last week and I told him, I said, do you understand that, we live in California and the majority of the fitness gym facilities, LA Fitness, 24-hour fitness, you can freeze a membership up to 90 days. So you're telling me a $1 billion industry cannot come up with an option of not deleting someone's account from 60 to 90 days, but women's gym down the street can actually do it? Like, you can figure it out if you really care. That's just the bottom line. If you care about this, if you think this is an issue, I'm sure there is a way around to safeguard someone's account for 60 to 90 days. So they know about it. Nothing has been, no action has been taken from anyone yet, but every single person I could imagine already have heard or know about it at this point.
Yeah. And this is where I really feel like organizations like the Insurance Marketing Coalition are essential because, I think that there's every organization, every TPMO that's involved in the enrollment chain, from placing the advertisement all the way to the agent who's, actually enrolling and placing that beneficiary. If faced with this question, they may have the same question that all of us have, which is whose job is this to fix it? And the answer is it's everybody's job. It's our job. We need to communicate on this. You've taken the lead. And frankly, that's why when you first brought this topic to us, which I think was less than a month ago, all of us rallied around making sure that this was given a platform, that people understood that this was taking place. We've seen it happen in other verticals. And it's been destructive to those verticals. And now that it's happening here, it's something that we simply can't abide, and we have to work together to find an answer. I'm going to go ahead and throw your presentation up on screen here and let you go through some of the information that you've presented here. I'll start with this one. This is a little bit about Advantage Plus. If you want to know what Bobby and his team do, they have almost 1,000 agents nationwide. So we're not talking about a small sample size here. They have a large support group behind the scenes. They have 4 field offices, and Bobby and his team have been doing this now for coming up on 20 years. So this is not an observation that is made by an uninformed team. So talk to me a little bit about the information that we're seeing on this slide. I'm seeing 3 different things. I'm seeing unauthorized agent switches, member confusion, telemarketing, complaint-based reinstatements. What did you find in these 830 cases that you did a deep dive on?
Yep. So this is the most important thing. So, the 830 cases that we followed from January 1st to December 31st, every single one of these or majority of these, our member services help them get back to their previous plan that they were in before getting disenrolled.
Mhm.
So when you see it says unauthorized agent switches, we're talking about, that people just switch them without even their knowledge, without any consent, without anything, just switch the member. And then majority of these member will be called up from a random agent saying, you know what, I'm calling on so and so behalf, being the carriers. We see that you have a disenrollment or you disenrolled with us. Would you like to come back to the plan? So
Mm.
this is happening very often. They're called. So again, they're getting their information, they're enrolling them into plans they're not supposed to be without consent. The second blue line that you see, the member confusion and telemarketing, again, we're talking about either misleading agents or call centers that are just, with the high grocery benefits and, the car washes and all the beautiful things, that they're getting promised. So that's a 23% of our 830. The complaint-based reinstatements are 22.9%. That's also a third of all these unauthorized switches. This means that someone didn't like the plan that they got enrolled into. They got again, they were misled into a plan. They called Medicare. We called Medicare with them. We did a 3-way call with them with Medicare. Medicare says, you know what, Bill, you are going back to your so and so plan next month. You were disenrolled last month, so that leaves you a 30 days gap. So now, when you go back to your plan, you become a new member. What happens here? You had a 30-day gap, new member, no agent of record. The carrier sees you as an house account. Every single care coordination that you had in place, transportation, deductible, benefits, pharmacy, everything is reset. And now again, you become a house account. That means that you either enroll through Medicare's website or there was a telesales from the carrier stuff, but there is no agent. So even though someone actually helped you initially, you now don't have an agent. So in all these 3 different ways that that members come back to the carriers, it could be the unauthorized agent switches, the member confusion telemarketing call centers, or if they call Medicare to complain and being reinstated. In all these 3, they are getting back to the same carriers without an agent of record that was previously assigned to them.
Is
So
there any remedy for that? Can you talk to Medicare about these particular cases and say, "Hey, we can see very clearly what happened here. Can we assign back the original AOR so this person has somebody to talk to, somebody to reach out to them, some way to guide them?" I'm not even talking about the financial impact here. I'm just talking about the beneficiary impact. Is there something there?
correct. No. So Medicare, we had this conversation before January 1st of this year. Before we even rolled out, starting getting upset at every single person, we actually had this conversation. Our member services, when they were on the phone with Medicare trying to get these people reinstated, we had these conversations. Medicare is leaving all that up to the carriers.
I
We had
see.
the conversations with the carriers. The carriers are keep telling us, you know what, we'll look into it. We'll look into it. We'll look into it. Nothing happens. Then, they came back and say it's an house account. We don't see an application on file. But then we connected it to, this is the same member that was previously enrolled, with this application number. You can track it. There's no changes.
Into the same plan, right? So, I mean,
Same
it
thing.
it all connects.
There
Okay.
is no changes at all. There's zero changes. There's not even an address change, on the member's new account coming into the health plan, of course. But again, health plans, they have the same. Again, we're not pointing fingers. Like this is, I want to make clear that we're not, trying to fight with anyone here. We're not in a battle with anyone. We're all friends, in this industry. We want to make it better and safer, not only for the ethical agents that are playing by the books, follow compliance every single day, but if we all are in this industry to help, the beneficiaries over 65 or under 65 that have Medicare, this is one of the most important thing that has been overlooked for years. Like this is something that should not even have. This should not even be a topic today in 2026. To be honest with you, there
Yeah,
should be so many safeguards within the carriers for us not to have this conversation overall. So
yeah. I
it's very
totally
unfortunate.
agree. I totally agree. I'm frankly a little surprised that we haven't gotten some comments from the almost 30 people that we have watching this. And I'm going to invite those people now to once again submit your questions. And also, what are your comments on this? I mean, how does this strike you if you're not aware of this particular phenomenon? And also, has anybody in our audience experience this, or is this going to cause you to go back and to do an investigation on what's happening within your agency if you happen to be an agency owner? And by the way, if you happen to be on the more marketing side of things and not the sales and enrollment side of things, you might take this information back to some of your big clients and say, you're talking to me about rapid disenrollments. Maybe it isn't the ad. Maybe it's somebody who's coming in post sale and disrupting that process I'll just call it what it is, an immoral way. So now let's talk about what the member level effects are here for this, because ultimately we are in the business of helping beneficiaries. That is what we're compensated for. That's how we go to sleep at night.
Mhm.
What happens to a member when this happens? I know it's not good.
Yep. It's a complete loss. It's a complete loss of anything, any records, anything that has to do with their care of coordination. That means, prior authorizations are automatically deleted within the medical group, within the health plans, out. Deductibles out of pocket, it completely resets. So now you go back to, you have to accumulate those things again, once again. Your care coordination, it could be, your transportation, your pharmacy benefits, anything is automatically reset. Your provider network access, is going to get disrupted because now you are joining another plan, coming back to the plan, another medical group, back to the IPA, so there's a lot of things there. Your claims and billing, of course, because you most likely, you're billing another plan for 30 days and then coming back, you're going to have disruption in between. Supplemental benefits, automatically going to get reset. If you're getting grocery benefits, dental benefits, vision benefits, of course, those are going to be deleted and reset. And most importantly is the care coordination for a senior that it is going to get disrupted with a plan change for 30 days. And in the end of the day, we all know in this industry, if you're effective with a new plan effective April 1st, that new plan is not going to be able to send you the member ID card, the package, before mid-April, of course. So there's no way you can actually coordinate everything before May 1st and also realize, what, that plan was not good for me. Let me go back to my old plan. It just doesn't work that way. They're not that fast. So, it's just a complete loss of any kind of a benefit or coordination that the seniors have.
So you've probably seen stories within your agency and heard from other agency owners the real human impact of this, right? I mean, let's face it, we are servants of an underserved population in many cases. You've got people that meet, everyone on this call and everyone watching this video after the fact, I'm sure is a very intelligent, very experienced, operator in this space. And it's still confusing for us sometimes. Can you imagine putting yourself in the beneficiary's shoes? They say that, this and Social Security are the two most complicated and important life decisions that you'll make between the ages of 50 and when you pass away. And I would say that this is more complicated than even the Social Security decisions that you need to make about, when you start taking Social Security and things of that nature. And now you're literally rug pulling these people and saying no for financial gain on the hopefully on the part of one agent, their hope that they would get financial gain out of it. This is all being disrupted. It's reprehensible.
Yep.
I'll move on here. Yeah, you talked a little bit about this, Bobby. Anything that from this supplementary slide that you want to add that you already discussed?
No, but I just want to add that can you imagine that all this disruption happens for someone that, maybe English is not even their main language. So now they need assistance to put all this in place and to figure all this out. And, that 70-year-old, person sitting there and, doesn't have anyone to help them, or English is not their first language, now you're talking about a whole different issue. So
Yeah.
it's a complete disruption of anything, as a healthcare, of course.
Yeah. If it weren't for the fact that I'm in charge of editing this video before we post it, I would say what I'm really thinking right now, but I will save myself the editing time and the bleeping by saying this is BS and it's got to stop.
Correct.
Let's talk about the agent impact here. What happens when AOR is displaced?
Yeah, so the side of the agent, of course, every agent works, different ways. Every agency works different ways, of course. But in the end of the day, majority of agents that do this, this is a not only, we're of course here to serve, the people needing our services, but we also all need to pay our rent and car payments, of course, in the end of the month. So we're all building a book of business. So once this happens, they're losing, that commission as an initial year, of course, that they just enroll someone off. They're losing their renewal commissions, for the next year, that 5+ years. Book of business, it lasts us as long as the patients are enrolled and active with the members. The ethical thing is that you put someone on a plan that has a long-term effect on them, because that's the best plan for them, of course. So the lifetime value of a book of business is more than just an initial payment for majority agents, of course. A lot of agencies, they have production and ranking, levels that, you'll get bonuses, or you'll qualify for co-op dollars or marketing or different pieces. So now when you keep losing members, unfortunate to this situation, you keep going down in your ranking and your level, of course. Accept all that as an agency. When we do something like this, when we investigate something like this, someone has to work on this case. We assign 2 people from January 1st, to December 31st. That's, more work on our administrative, team, to spend time away from things they should be doing and things they should not be doing, like this, of course. So overall, that's, the loss of an agent and agency. But in the end of the day, the trust impact for all of us is bigger than anything else. The trust that the members lose in our agents is huge, because they don't know who disenrolled them, enrolled them, moved them, lied to them, misled them into this. The agents barely know what's happening. If they're working with a lead vendor, we work with a lot of good lead vendors. They'll blame it on the lead vendor. They'll say it was a bad lead, it was sold 20 times, and it's not even the case in majority of these cases. So the trust, when all this happens, the impact that has, our industry, the loss of trust is bigger than any financial amount that we can imagine. We had something similar in, the ACA world for many, many years. I was, one of the first people selling ACA back when it was, a super hot product. But, years after years, we saw this happen, saw this, going down the same path, until they started realizing this is actually happening on a large scale. Now we're doing the same thing, and it's going to damage the industry the next few years if there's not put a stop on it, like, immediately. This is not something I can wait for another 5 or 10 years, unfortunately. It's just
Bobby,
not.
let's call it what it is. It's theft.
Of course.
Theft.
Yes, of course.
Theft. I'm going to pause the presentation here for a moment, because we do have some great comments that have shown up here. I'm going to go ahead and throw one of those up here. Let's see here. So Jen had a comment here. This is a great question. This is a great solutions-oriented question. What software do you have at the agency in place for your agents to keep an accurate eye in real time, showing these disenrollments, and even more important, how it affects their customers? Is there a solution? And if so, please share it with us.
Yeah, no. So there is not that many solutions. We have our own internal CRM, of course. Our own internal CRM. We show real-time data based on enrollments. So we work, with third party such as Sunfire. We show real-time enrollments. These enrollments, unfortunately, we depend on the carriers to send us those reports, to send us those data. We try to pull data from the carriers every 2 weeks. Some are slower than others. But in the end of the day, our commission department actually runs eligibility on anything that we get back as a terminated client. So when we get the reports, it says terminated. We run eligibility immediately on those to see if they're actually terminated, where they moved. We'll get a hold of them, talk to them. Did they do this? They didn't know what happened. So it's not an accurate system because there's nothing in place, unfortunately, because we all depend, either on CMS or the carriers. But we try to, of course, run it within our own CRM and commission department as, fast and better as possible, of course.
Yeah, it occurs to me there might be an AI use case here, right? So a lot of us are experimenting with agentic AI and the different things that you can now do that run in an automated fashion on your behalf. Might be a good opportunity for an entrepreneur on this call to put together something that can quickly diagnose this and collect it. And boy, wouldn't it be a great world? And I don't mean to be giving away $1 million idea here, but wouldn't it be a great world if different agencies could talk to one another and compile it up so that we could tell the carriers and CMS the scale of this happening across agencies? Leslie answered the question I put out there, which, has this happened to you? And Leslie said it has happened to me several times and it's infuriating. I can only imagine, Leslie. It just happened to a client who had an agent come to their home and put them in a C-SNP that she did not qualify for. Awesome. And when the client called me, I told her she was no longer my client because she enrolled in a different plan. She was stunned at this information. I'll be able to move her back with a qualified SEP, but it should not continue to happen. Bobby, this is the story that you hear at least, 800, you heard at least 800 times last year, right? Yeah.
Yep. Do you know that the funny thing is that enrolling someone into a chronic plan that does not fit them and, they are not eligible to be enrolled into a chronic plan actually creates an SCP, for that new agents to enroll them into another plan. Because once they're not qualified, it gives them a 60 days, grace period of being dropped into a plan. So that's also been used from a lot of these unethical, agents out there. They enroll them into a plan. They know they don't fit into the diabetic plan, whatever, and suddenly they'll call up Maria and say, "Hey, Maria, I'm sorry, but you don't fit into this plan. Let's get you back to this plan."
This is like the orthopedic surgeon. This is like the orthopedic surgeon who walks around with a baseball bat and hits people in the knee. And it's like, well, I've got good news for you. I know a good knee surgeon, which is him. All right. Anyway, terrible analogy, but I can't help but laugh because I'm starting to get very frustrated with this. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to show this question. This is a good one. Megan Guido has a question. If you don't know Megan, you should go right now, follow her on LinkedIn, and get to know her. She runs LeadStar. She's amazing. Her question is, are unethical AOR switches more common in MA or ACA plans or about the same? Bobby's the person to answer this question. Anything agents can do to prevent this from happening? And before you answer that, I'll just say Leslie had a follow-up. She after your answer, she said that's exactly the SCP that I'm going to have to use, the SCP that was agent inflicted by the unethical agent. So I guess that's practical advice. It doesn't seem to,
I would imagine maybe in Leslie's case, she might have caught it before the actual agent would have called this patient back and enrolled them into another plan or the same plan. So good for you.
That's right. Good process there.
Yep. To answer
anyway,
Megan's question, I think that we have, I think we've come away from the ACA. There's still a lot of things happening in the ACA that they're not able to control. And we're talking about the same plan switches, enrolling people without their consent. A lot of these crazy things are still happening. But I think, we came down from the very high numbers of, fraudsters doing it because, there's more actions taken. So I think, those have poured into the MA world. I had conversations a few weeks ago with one of the largest carriers, that now stopped complete agent onboarding for the last 6 months, and they have no start date to it. And their reasoning was that, they have so many call centers right now that they actually terminated because of all these issues that they're trying to just stop onboarding so those call centers don't come back from, another door. And I was like, this is crazy. So you guys are just blocking all of us at this point to have agents because you guys actually give access to a few bad apples. And that shouldn't be the case. And also when you compare, these two things, an ACA, might pay them 20, 25, $30 per enrollment, depending on the contract, call centers, whatever bonuses. You're talking about an MA, plan that, you're getting in all states on average 350, $800 per enrollment. You might get a bonus on top of it. You might, reach a different level within your agency. So, we're talking about, 10, 20 times more, you know, commission than the ACA. So I think that MAPD not only have, more unethical AOR switches at this point, um, but I also think it also compensates them much higher. So that's why, you're going to have more and more and more people interested in this unethical side of the business because they're seeing nothing is happening. It's a door that is wide open for everyone at this point. So that's my take on it. Anything agents can do to prevent this from happening, yes, you can do the same thing as we're doing. We're
Mhm.
not trying to get an award for this. We could care less, what they call this safeguard, as long as they put it in place. Take actions, call the carriers that you are friends with, you know, talk to them. This is not an unheard issue. This is happening every day. Short-term disenrollment should not happen. The only thing we're asking for is the same thing that every single ethical agent should ask for, that if a client is disenrolled, do not delete their account within 60 or 90 days. If they come back, just take that account, put it in your system, and say, you know what, Bill, welcome back. We have everything on file. You don't need to do anything. That's it. That's the only thing we're asking for. And I would hope that majority of people on this call or out in the industry just starts, having the same conversations with the carriers.
Well, I think it's too late now because I just sent an email to Dr. Oz saying that he needs to put in the Bakhshandeh rule. And I was hoping they would pull that they would pull that name into the regulations. I
At
promise
this
you.
point, you can call it anything you want to. I'm just fed up with the fact that this is happening and no one is taking an action. You know.
All right.
And thank you for the compliment, though.
Great answer. Let's enter the networking and solutioning part of today's discussion with Jen's comment here. Jen works for a software company that would be of interest to many of you. Kaizen. Hey, no paid endorsements here, but I can tell you I'm very familiar with Kaizen. If you don't know John Winter and his team there, they're a bunch of outstanding individuals. Kaizen Insurance Suite supports independent agents and independent agencies and agents, FMOs, IPAs, providers, and healthcare, designed to unify and contract. I could see where a piece of software like Kaizen, and I happen to be familiar with it, could certainly help with this. Now, Jen, I do have an ask for you, which is to make sure that you're getting with Caitlin right after this call because we need Kaizen as a member of the Insurance Marketing Coalition. That's my ask to you. And by the way, just standard pitch here. If you're not a member of the Insurance Marketing Coalition, this is one demonstration of many. This happens multiple times per week, focused on our weekly forum generally, but multiple times per week. We are sending out information to our members, and we are rallying action amongst our members. Everything from the FCC action that took place at the beginning of last year, all the way to identifying issues like this with industry leaders and giving ourselves an opportunity to push back and to be involved in that conversation and to bring solutions to the table. And yes, Jen, Jen also thanks us for shining a light on this topic, and we are delighted to do so. And if again, just the last, I'll wrap up the pitch. This is what the IMC does, and this is why the IMC is an extraordinarily worthwhile organization for everyone here to be involved with. Bobby, let's put your slides back up on the stage here. And we talked about the agent impact. Let's talk about the financial exposure. These are big numbers that we're getting. This is one agency. Now, it's not a small agency that you run, but these are big for everybody, no matter how big your agency is.
Correct. And this is, these numbers are just based on an actual agent. Has nothing to do with the agency. Forget, the agency overrides the contracts, everything else. This
Mhm.
is just based on the financial impact that a normal agent could have if they lose 830 members. An average commission, in California, we get a little bit more, other states a little bit less, but an average is 350 for an initial year. So 830 times 350 just for 1 year is 290,000 just as a commission that goes onto unethical side of it. So when we build a book of businesses, let's just say a 5 year, when I have clients that been with me since 2011, 2010, like so many years, they're still existing. They're still in the same plans, no changes. So let's talk about a 5 year, book of business. We're talking about 1.5 million almost that goes lost just because someone didn't have an ethical side of the business, in their brain, to be honest. And the real cost is not, the financial side of it. It could be 1.5, it could be 5.5. It doesn't matter. It's how, the trust, the compliance, and the member continuity and the coordination of care is just completely destroyed because, again, this happens every single day to those people out there in the industry, of course. Every single day is happening.
Unbelievable.
Yep.
All right, so let's talk about what you've done. You've had carrier conversations. You've begun investigating this and documenting it within your agency. But let's circle back to what we started with on that video. You brought this to the attention of the regulatory authority and the administrative authority for Medicare Advantage. So breaking down the CMS submission. Take us through some highlights of the points that we have up on screen.
Yep. So, plain and simple. So we're formally requesting CMS to step in and, just have some oversight when it comes to the basic thing is short-term disenrollment. That's, the basic category. We just want, short-term disenrollments to be fully under the oversight of CMS. Meaning, again, if they leave, they come back within a window, not, it's not an unlimited, window, of course. 60 to 90 days, we want CMS to, to implement the system, just like they implement on agencies, when they tell us we have to keep the scope and keep all these things for 10 years. We want the carriers, to have that, guideline for them to be able to keep that account active for 60 to 90 days. The problem identified or member level impact, we already gone through all these things, how, it impacts, the members, how the problem is when they're disenrolled without their consent or they're being misled into a, health plan, how that actually creates, that gap in their coverage. So, when we look at the whole picture, there's two people that actually gets very hurt. It's, the members first and, the ethical agents, because that gap in between just deletes everything. So again, our letter to CMS is based on majority of their own guidelines. It aligns with the marketing rules that CMS have put in place for many years. Again, we're just basically asking them to do one very simple thing. This is not brain surgery. We're just saying, what? If someone disenrolls, comes back within 60 to 90 days, please do not delete their account. Just put it on hold in some server, some folder, another department. If they come back, you see the same name, you see the same MBI number, the same birthday, just put it back and say, you know what, Bill, welcome back to so-and-so plan. We don't need any information from you. We have everything in place. Go ahead and enjoy, your plan again. Simple, easy.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is an actual copy of the letter that you sent. I believe you have posted this on social media, but that's something that's easily tracked down. If you want to do a search on, I think CMS also keeps a record of these on their site, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Now I can tell you this is going to be both a great question and a challenging question. I haven't read it yet, but it's from Helene Fingold, who is the number one attorney operator in this space, formerly with CMS and now with an outside counsel that specializes in this. And Helene asks, and I never get, it's Epstein Becker Green. I don't get all the names in there when I name her firm, but everyone here has heard of it. What would benefit the bad actors from waiting out the 60 to 90-day period to re-enroll the beneficiary? That is a damn good question. What's our solution to that?
You said benefits. Sorry, it's prevent.
Oh, yeah, sorry, my bad.
Sorry, no worries. There's no benefit.
No,
yes.
Amen.
So what would prevent? Okay, so basically, I would say again, because we don't want this request to to sound crazy to start with. We're not going to ask someone to keep someone's account active for a year or 2 years after disenrollment. So we got to be fair, and we got to try to implement the system that works for everyone, the carriers, the agencies, the medical groups, everyone in place, of course. So, I would say if someone didn't realize, that their new plan didn't work for them, within that certain of date, of course, that's a different story. But if someone doesn't realize that they've been disenrolled from so and so plan and it's been 60 to 90 days and they haven't realized it, it's a whole conversation. But the reason that we're saying, 60 to 90 days is because we think, and we have had these conversations, with people, realizing it after 5 days, after 7 days, after 14 days that they were changed into a plan. So we saw that majority of people, they're not realizing it right away. But once they get the new, newsletters or ID cards from the carriers being sent to them after 2 weeks saying, hey, you're a new member with so and so, it takes a few weeks, of course. That's when they realize, I'm a member of this plan. I was disenrolled. This carrier is going to send you a letter, say, hey, you disenrolled from us from this date, whatever. So, we know that it's going to take a week or two for them to get their new member enrollment, materials, for them to realize they were disenrolled, from their current plan. But again, we don't want to make it sound too crazy where we're saying, give us 6 months grace period or 10 months, because we know that that's almost impossible for a carrier and medical group to have those safeguards in place. So you know there is no preventing these bad actors. Of course, it might still go on and on and on and on. That's just an honest answer. But I think we have to start somewhere. Can we get an implemented system that says, what, a safeguard for 60 to 90 days? Then maybe we can have this conversation of, in a year, hey, can we increase this, to 120 days, to 150 days? Like, what can we do to prevent, further, disenrollments or AOR changes in the system once we have the basic system in place? So it's a start.
Have you thought about, and did your letter address, and I read it when you first shared it with me, and I don't recall if this was specifically in there, but have you thought about or discussed with CMS or the carriers sanctioning people that are found to have done this? Because it seems like there's a way for you to, if there's a certain pattern of behavior,
Correct.
And this happens, it seems like people should be excluded from the business. I'm not saying like you need to give the carrier death penalty,
Correct.
if it happens one time, but I wouldn't mind that.
Correct. I agree with you. I wouldn't mind that either. But we realize, just cutting down, the 830 that we did data on, half of those, belong to basically 3 agencies in California. And by that, I means that, again, I'm not, accusing the actual agency of doing it. But those agents that now became AOR of the new applications belong primarily to 3 agencies within California. Now, when we looked at the bigger picture, we saw that, you keep seeing on LinkedIn and this, that, that agencies in conversation are having golf tournaments and, are very best buddies with the leadership and, this. So, this circle of, friendship just exists. So do we want to tackle that to start with? Unfortunately, we're going to step away from, doing that right now, because we rather have the safeguards in place from CMS than going and say, hey, you know what, so and so carrier, you're best friends with these guys. We know that because you see your reports, you see the members, you see the agent's name, you see the agency's name, but yet you're not taking actions. And I doubt they will take immediate actions, because the friendships within these carriers are very important to them. Of course, membership does come in from these agencies that are in question.
Yeah,
So,
you know what I have to say about that, Bobby. Again, I tend to be completely frank about these things. When I started in this business 5.5 years ago, I was told by many of the people that I interacted with at the beginning that one of the things I had to understand right away is that this is a relationship business. And I understand that. And I think that that's really good. And the reason I think that's really good is because when I think about a relationship, a true healthy relationship, I think about not just a degree of collegiality, but a degree of accountability. And if if it really is a relationship business, and we really do have deep and abiding and important relationships between the different TPMOs and other players and carriers in this business, then that relationship should have an element of accountability into it, along with the element of golf. And I would hope that would be the case, and I would challenge those of us who do, have leadership positions in this business to exercise that accountability within our relationships and to push us all in a better direction. Leslie has another really interesting point here, which is the rule that says we're not allowed to contact an individual after we find out that they have left our book of business should be changed. I follow the rules, so even though I see them leave, I won't contact them to ask them why. Of course, we know why that protection is in place. That was meant to, keep agents from, I don't want to say harassing, but, keeping them from, inappropriately pursuing a lost relationship. This is something we can't do right now. Did you contemplate this at all, Bobby, when you made your recommendations to CMS, or are you just you're just focused on the one core rule now, right?
No, I think this is exactly the problem. Like
Mm.
they're like CMS have put safeguards up, for agents to do so many things that we think are right and they
Yeah.
think are wrong, but then we're running into these issues. Like again, if an agent can follow up, like this is exactly the problem. You're putting a wall up for the agent to contact, Bill to see if Bill actually disenrolled, if he have any idea about how he got disenrolled, or maybe he has a question and wants to come back to his plan. Let me help him. There's all these safeguards, but there's no safeguards, for the carriers. There's nothing. It's just that the safeguards put in place, the laws and the guidelines that are put in place. If you ask me, after, close to, 17, 18 years in this business, I think that we're going backwards. Like we're trying to, put walls up against people that are doing the right thing. And here you have everyone else just running in a jungle. It's just completely backwards.
Certainly unfair. I'm going to go through that's the end of the slide presentation. You also sent me some screenshots this morning that you wanted to go into. And any particular one I should start with? There's coded C, or just jump them up there. Okay.
Yep, go for it.
Oh, thank God you redacted the information. I'm just kidding. We made sure he redacted the information before we put.
No, so you know what? We just want to, show you exactly what happens when we pull the data. This is just some random patients out of these members that we pulled. This is their medical eligibility. This is a member. So you can scroll to the next page of this person and you'll see how this enrollment, easily work. On this, you will see that, the patient has been in an Anthem Blue Cross plan since June 1st of 2024. On February 1st of 2026, they were enrolled into another carrier called Imperial Health Plan.
Mhm.
And then again, this person comes back March 1st to Anthem Blue Cross. Like, this is just one example. This is a random example.
And you have another one here with
of course, this is another female. We only left, the gender of the person so we can see the difference. So, same thing, a Medicare eligibility. Same thing here. See, September 1st of 2024, this person was with the Lyman Health Plan until January 1st. January 31st, they terminated Imperial Health Plan, and then they're going back to Lyman Health Plan February 1st. And what happened in this case? There's just a gap of 30 days. Member completely lost of anything. Agent of record has been deleted. Now this person goes back to agent of, on house account.
Wow. And then, I think that there's this last example here where you've got another individual who's Medicare eligible. And don't tell me, is this Imperial again that they got switched into?
No, I think you're actually using the previous screen.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. I think that, the point is made, right? The point is made is that this is that you're using this as a diagnostic tool and showing the receipts, as the people younger than me used to say. Leslie has another comment here. I think it could, at least this is going back to our previous comment on the no contact rule after somebody leaves your book. I think it could be at least amended to how long the client had been your book of business. That's an interesting idea. If more than 3 years, I think a relationship is well established and should able to be contacted. That seems entirely reasonable to me.
Yes, it does, but still, I don't think it's fair. I think I think that should just be a guideline that says, if someone disenrolls, you have 14 days to contact them. Don't call them after 2 years, of course, trying to get them back. But there should be a certain window from disenrollment date for you to actually jump in to have a conversation. Do you pass that window? It's done deal. You didn't show interest, of course. But I think there should just be a grace period for you to actually have that conversation with someone.
We are coming up to the top of the hour. We've got about 5 minutes left. I want to give individuals in the audience an opportunity to drop their questions. Bobby, while those are compiling, any last points that you'd like to leave the audience with?
I want to say that this is never going to stop. Unless we have these safeguards in place, this is not going to stop. In 2025, we just did, a simple experiment data on 830 patients that we found, of course. Today, last week, we actually just did our February commissions. That means we're 2 months in of this year of doing data again. And we're going to run this data until we actually have an answer. And just until February, we have close to 300 new cases. And
Wow.
this year we're gonna have more than 830 if just the first 2 months. So, I'm just suggesting that everyone just have a conversation with whoever within the carriers. This is something that's gonna protect agents, agencies, lead vendors, any kind of a marketing agency out there, and especially the beneficiaries that we serve, of course, in this industry. That's
And
the main.
IMC will be on your side in terms of helping with this. I haven't seen any additional questions, so let's wrap it up. Bobby, thank you so much for bringing real numbers, real stories. And again, this is exactly the kind of conversation the IMC exists to have. The stuff that's costing agents, agencies, and beneficiaries in ways that, don't always show up in a headline. And certainly if they are going to be a headline, you hear about it here first. And to those of you in our audience who are watching live or are watching this on YouTube, if today's discussion hit close to home, I want to hear from you. Please do reach out to us at imcorg.com. And if your organization isn't part of the IMC yet, right now is a great time to change that. Chris, my normal co-host, I hope you feel better, my brother. We missed you today, but I think Bobby and I were able to hold it down. I'm Bill DeCourcy. Thanks, everybody, for being here, and we will see you next time.
Thank you so much.